roads are quiet this time of year. The tourists are gone, the leaves have fallen, and all that's left are the long, empty miles between forgotten towns. So sit back, listen close, and keep your eyes on the road. Because tonight, I'll tell you 5 true stories about the places your GPS should never find. The lonely highways, the ghost towns, and the roads that never seem to end. These are the Forgotten Roads, true horror stories. I was driving home from a client meeting late one November night, the kind of night when the fog sits low over the highway and headlights feel too weak to cut through it. The interstate was half closed for maintenance, orange cones everywhere, and my GPS kept rerouting, flickering like it was unsure where I actually was. When the robotic voice told me to take the next exit for a detour that would save 17 minutes, I didn't even think twice. I just turned. The new road was narrow, cracked, lined with leafless trees that looked like bones under the mist. My high beams caught patches of asphalt and puddles that shimmered like mirrors. The GPS said I'd rejoin the main highway in 12 miles. Easy enough, I thought. Just 12 miles through the back roads. After a few minutes, I realized I hadn't seen a single house or sign of life. No cars behind me, none coming the other way. The only sound was the hum of my tires on wet pavement. Then, my headlights caught a road sign. County Route 47. I glanced at the GPS, but it didn't show any numbers. Just a thin, gray line that curved endlessly forward. I kept driving. After what felt like 20 minutes, I saw another sign, County Route 47. Again. Same dent on the corner, same bullet hole through the 4. I laughed nervously and told myself maybe this stretch just repeated the markers. Still, a tightness started to build in my chest. I drove another 10 minutes, gripping the wheel harder, waiting for something, anything, to change. When I saw that same sign a 3rd time, I pulled over. The fog was thick now, swallowing the trees and muffling sound. I killed the engine and stepped out. The air was colder than before, sharp with the smell of wet leaves and old dirt. My phone had no service. The GPS screen was frozen, the blue arrow trembling in place. I tapped it, the map blinked, and for half a second, I thought I saw another blue arrow ahead of me, like there was a second car on the same route. That was enough for me to get back in and keep moving. The further I drove, the more the world seemed to close in. The trees grew denser, leaning over the road as if watching. The fog turned darker, thicker. My headlights didn't seem to push it back anymore. They just painted it gray. Then I saw taillights in the distance. Finally, another driver. Relief washed over me. I pressed the gas a little harder to catch up. The red glow ahead was steady, moving slowly through the haze. I followed it for a while, keeping a few car lengths between us. But something felt off. The way the lights flickered, didn't look right. Too dim, too erratic, almost like reflections on glass. After a few minutes, the car ahead pulled over to the shoulder. Its brake lights glowed faintly through the mist. I slowed down too, expecting to pass and maybe check if they needed help. But as I got closer, my stomach turned to ice. It was my car. Same color, same model, same license plate. The car was parked on the right side of the road, headlights off, engine silent. The windows were pitch black. I sat there in shock, my own engine idling softly, breath fogging up the inside of the windshield. For a long moment, neither car moved. Then, the headlights of the other car flicked on. I slammed the gear into reverse and nearly drove off the road. My tires screamed against the pavement. The other car's headlights grew brighter, blinding, and the engine roared like mine. I threw the car into drive and sped forward, heart pounding so hard I could hear it over the sound of the wheels. The road twisted sharply. I didn't remember any turns before. My GPS started speaking again, but the voice was different, lower, distorted, repeating, "Continue on the route." Continue on the route. I tried to shut it off, but the screen wouldn't respond. Every time I looked up, the road seemed to stretch longer, the trees pulling closer. The headlights behind me followed perfectly, never gaining, never falling back. After a few frantic miles, I saw a clearing ahead, a dim glow, maybe a gas station or a streetlight. I sped toward it, desperate for something familiar. But when I burst out of the tree line, the light vanished. I was back on the main highway. Just like that. No fog, no trees, no second car. My hands were shaking. I pulled over, stepped out, and let the cold air fill my lungs. My phone suddenly had full service again. I looked behind me. The Detour road was gone. Only a rusted guardrail and a patch of forest. I stood there for a while, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it. Eventually, I got back in and drove the rest of the way home in silence. The next morning, I checked my GPS history. There was no record of any detour, no alternate route. The app showed a single continuous drive along the interstate. But there was one odd thing. A screenshot auto-saved in my photos. I never take screenshots while driving. It was from the night before. Time-stamped 11:47 p.m. It showed 2 blue arrows on the map, and one of them was still moving. You hear a lot of strange things when you spend your life behind a wheel. Most of it's nonsense. Campfire stories passed between truckers trying to stay awake at 2 a.m. But some stories stick around too long to be made up. This one started showing up about 10 years ago. Everyone calls it the Man at Mile 313. The first time I heard it, I was parked at a rest stop in Kansas, sipping burnt coffee with a guy named Roy. He'd been hauling freight longer than I'd been alive, and he told it like a man trying to warn you, not entertain you. He said there's a stretch of road between Denver and Wichita, Route 70 East, where the mile markers start to look wrong. Between 310 and 314, there's a pull-off with no gas station, no lights, just a long shoulder fading into the cornfields. Most people never notice it, but the ones who do see him. According to Roy, the man always stands by the guardrail on the northbound side. Long brown coat, head down, hands buried deep in the pockets. He doesn't move, doesn't hitchhike, doesn't even look up when you pass. If you slow down or stop, even just a little, he turns his head toward you. And that's when you're supposed to keep driving, no matter what. Roy said the first story came from a rookie driver, a kid named Tanner, who'd pulled over to check his tires one foggy night. The air was so still he could hear the highway humming. When he straightened up, the man was standing 10 feet behind his trailer, staring right at him. No headlights, no sound of footsteps, just there. Tanner jumped into the cab and floored it. Swore he saw the same figure appear in his mirror a second later, standing as the next mile marker, watching him leave. People said Tanner quit trucking that month, sold his rig and vanished. No one knows where he went. But the story didn't stop there. A few years later, a state trooper went missing while patrolling that stretch. They found his cruiser abandoned at mile 313, lights still flashing, driver's door wide open. His dash cam footage was recovered, most of it static. But in one clear frame, you can see the edge of the highway. A figure in a long brown coat, standing motionless at the guardrail. The timestamp froze right before midnight. That was enough to make most drivers avoid the area after dark. But not everyone learns from stories. Last winter, I found myself hauling a load east on Route 70. Snow was coming down sideways, the kind that eats your high beams and turns the world into static. I'd been driving 12 hours straight, and my eyelids felt like sandpaper. Then I saw it. Mile 313. My stomach dropped. I hadn't even realized I was on that part of the route. The shoulder opened wide, swallowed by white fog. And there he was. At first, I thought it was a mailbox, a trick of the lights. But as I passed, my high beams caught the shape, tall, human, still. A man in a long brown coat standing by the rail, facing the road. My foot hovered over the brake, pure reflex. Every instinct screamed to slow down. But Roy's voice popped into my head. Keep driving, no matter what. So I did. For a few seconds, the snow thinned. My mirrors reflected nothing but the endless dark behind me. I took a deep breath and reached for my thermos. When I looked back up, there was a man in the middle of the road. Same coat, same height. He wasn't moving. I slammed the brakes. The trailer fish-tailed, screeching across the lane. I braced for the hit, but it never came. The road was empty. The man was gone. I sat there in the middle of Route 70, engine idling, heart hammering against my ribs. My radio hissed with static. Then, faintly, through the static, a voice. "Why did you stop?" I dropped the thermos, grabbed the wheel, and hit the gas. The rig roared forward. My CB went dead. The GPS froze at mile marker 314 for the next 20 miles. I didn't stop driving until I hit the Missouri line. When I told the story at the next truck stop, an older guy across the counter laughed. Said he'd seen the same thing years ago. He even showed me a photo on his phone, a blurry shot taken through a windshield at night. Snow falling, headlights dim, and a dark figure standing by the guardrail. Under the photo was the location tag. Mile 313. He swore he hadn't taken that picture himself. It appeared in his gallery one morning after a night run. Timestamp, 12 a.m. I didn't laugh. Nobody does. These days, when drivers talk about that stretch, we keep our voices low. Some think it's just a ghost, a lost traveler stuck between exits. Others say it's something older, something that waits by the road for the ones who slow down. I don't pretend to know. But every time I pass that mile marker, I set my cruise control to exactly 65. Hands steady, eyes straight ahead. Because sometimes, out of the corner of my mirror, I swear I still see him, standing there in the fog, watching. It was almost midnight when the fuel light came on. I'd been driving for hours through the backroads of northern Arkansas, trying to cut across the state to make it home before dawn. The main highway was closed due to a wreck, so I followed the GPS down some rural routes that twisted through endless woods. My tank had been low for a while, but I kept telling myself I'd find a station soon. Then the orange light blinked on, and the next 20 miles were nothing but fog and silence. No towns, no lights. Just my headlights carving tunnels through the mist. When the GPS finally chirped that a gas station was 3 miles ahead, I nearly laughed with relief. "Thank God," I whispered. 3 miles. The map showed a place called Hartley's Fuel and Service. I didn't remember seeing it on the way out, but at that point, I didn't care. The little blue arrow led me to a side road and a fading sign that said gas. 0.5 miles. The road wound down a small hill. When the station appeared out of the fog, I almost missed it. A squat brick building with 2 old pumps out front. The kind with spinning metal numbers and long rubber hoses. The sign was so faded, it looked more like a ghost of paint than real words. But the lights were on, a pale yellow glow behind the windows. Someone was there. I pulled up beside one of the pumps and stepped out. The cold hit me like a slap. The air smelled of wet asphalt and rust. The ground was cracked, weeds poking through the concrete. The pump handles were sticky, coated in some oily grime. I leaned down to read the faded instructions. 10 gallons for $3.29 a gallon. I blinked. The display said $3.29, not dollars, cents. For a moment I thought it was a joke, maybe an old decorative pump. But when I picked up the handle, the meter clicked. The sound echoed through the empty night, and I felt a pulse in the hose like something alive moving through it. I dropped the handle fast. My breath clouded in front of me. The door to the store creaked open. A man stood there, framed by yellow light. Thin, gray hair slicked back, old blue work shirt, name patch faded to nothing. "Evening," he said. His voice was too calm, too slow. Yeah, hey, you open?" He smiled. His teeth were too white for the rest of him. "We're always open." I hesitated. The station was silent except for the buzzing fluorescent light over the counter. Behind him, the shelves were stocked with dusty cans, faded candy wrappers, bottles that hadn't seen a factory in decades. Still, I needed fuel. I forced a laugh. "Guess I'm lucky, huh? Could have been walking. Everyone ends up here sooner or later," he said, eyes never leaving mine. Something about the way he said it made my stomach turn. I decided to pay quickly and leave. "Can I get a full tank on pump 1? He nodded. "Sure thing. You can pay after. Just fill up." I stepped back outside. The fog had thickened. I couldn't see the road anymore. The pump ticked faintly in the cold air. I reached for the nozzle again, telling myself to calm down. But when I looked at my car, I froze. The reflection in the window wasn't me. Someone else stood where I was. Same clothes, same build. But the face was pale, hollow, the eyes black pits. I stumbled back, heart racing, the nozzle clattering against the concrete. I turned to run toward the car, but the man from inside was standing by the door now, closer than he should have been. "Forgot to finish," he said quietly. "Tank's not full." That's when the lights went out. Everything. Darkness swallowed the lot. The buzzing stopped. The fog pressed closer until it felt like a wall. I could still see him, not from light, but from the faint outline of his grin. Then, faintly, the pump began ticking again on its own. Click, 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 each sound echoing like a heartbeat. I dove into the car, slammed the door, and hit the ignition. The headlights flicked on, but there was no building anymore. No man, no pumps. Just a dead-end road surrounded by trees. The GPS screen glitched, then went black. I drove until the tank hit empty again, praying for any sign of civilization. Eventually, I saw a real gas station, bright, modern, full of people. I pulled in, shaking, and stumbled out. The clerk asked if I was okay. I told him I'd come from a place called Hartley's Fuel and Service. He frowned. Hartley's? Man, that station burned down in the 70s. Ain't nothing there but concrete and brush. I laughed. It came out broken. No, I was just there. An old guy. He shook his head. Son, you need some rest. Folks say sometimes the fog plays tricks on people out there. I didn't argue. I filled up, paid, and drove home. But the next morning, I checked my bank app. There was a new charge. $3.29. Under merchant name, it said, Hartley's Fuel and Service. Approved. I got the first message on a Wednesday night, right after dinner. It was from my friend, Eric, or at least from his number. We hadn't talked much since college, just the occasional text or meme. So when my phone buzzed at 11:17 p.m. with a voicemail from him, I figured it was just a drunk call or pocket dial. But when I played it, everything in me went cold. At first, all I heard was static, low, crackling like wind through a tunnel. Then, faintly, Eric's voice. Hey, man. I don't think I'm on the right road. There was a pause. Tires on asphalt. The hum of an engine. I took the detour outside Pine Hollow. GPS said it'd save me time, but I've been driving for hours. The road just keeps looping. I swear I've seen the same mile marker 3 times. I thought it was a prank. Eric had that kind of humor, dark, dry. I almost laughed. But then the tone in his voice changed, and that stopped me cold. There's something out here, he whispered. I keep seeing headlights behind me, but every time I stop, they vanish. I tried calling for help, but the call won't go through. You're the only one that connected. The message cut off suddenly, a sharp pop, like the line went dead. I replayed it twice, thinking maybe he was just messing with me. But the timestamp said 11:17 p.m., and I remembered seeing on social media that he'd been driving cross-country for a work trip that week. He really was on the road. I texted him, Hey, you okay? What road are you on? No answer. An hour later, a second voicemail came through. This one was shorter, just breathing, fast and shaky, and something that sounded like the distant wail of metal bending. Then Eric's voice again, lower, almost broken. I keep passing the same gas station. Same pump, same guy standing there. I think he waved this time. The line went dead again. By then, I was pacing around my living room, half tempted to call the cops. But what would I even say? My friend left me weird voicemails from the middle of nowhere. So I just waited. I I kept refreshing my messages, scrolling his feed, checking news from the Pine Hollow area. Nothing. No updates. Then came the third message. It arrived at 3:42 a.m. I hadn't even slept. When I hit play, there was no static this time. Just Eric's voice, calm. Too calm. I figured it out, he said. It's not a road. It's a loop. The detour doesn't lead anywhere. Every time I try to turn around, the road just folds back into itself, like it's alive. He started laughing, slow, hollow, not like him at all. I saw my car. Same license plate, parked on the side. I walked up to it, and someone was sitting inside. I think it was me. I stopped the playback halfway through. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped the phone. When I picked it up again, the message had finished on its own. There was one last line. If you get a message from me again, don't answer. It's not me. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I called the highway patrol and filed a missing person report. They said Eric's last card transaction was at a diner in Oklahoma, hours from Pine Hollow. His car was never found. They told me not to worry, that sometimes people go off-grid for a while. But I could hear the hesitation in the officer's voice when I played the voicemails for him. He asked me to email them over. I did. The next day, the files were gone. Deleted from my phone, from my backups, even from the email. I thought I'd made some stupid tech mistake until I noticed something else. There was a new voicemail. No notification, no number. Just a blank entry at the top of the list. I hit play. It started with the same sound. Tires on wet asphalt, faint static. Then, slowly, Eric's voice, whispering like he was right next to me. You shouldn't have listened. My blood turned to ice. The background noise grew louder. The hum of an engine, a faint radio playing something that sounded familiar. I realized after a moment what it was. My own voice. It was me, from earlier that night, saying, You okay? What road are you on? He was replying to my message, but he shouldn't have been able to. The last call was days old. I threw the phone on the table. The screen flickered once, then showed a notification I'll never forget. Playing message from unknown wrote, I don't know what happened to Eric. The police closed the report after 2 weeks. His company said he never checked into his next stop. But here's the thing. Sometimes, when I drive late at night with my phone connected to Bluetooth, I hear the faintest crackle under the radio. And sometimes, between stations, I hear his voice whisper my name. The last time it happened, I glanced down at the GPS. For just a second before the map refreshed, the blue arrow split in two. One kept driving forward. The other turned onto a gray road labeled simply --. Detour. The sign wasn't on any map. I know because I checked afterward 12 times, on Google, on old atlases, even on a satellite view. There was no town called Ashbury Hollow. But that night, it was right there, painted in fading white letters on a green metal sign at the edge of the road. I'd been driving back from visiting my parents in Nebraska, taking back roads to avoid the Thanksgiving traffic. November air was sharp, the kind that smells of frost and smoke. I had the radio low, headlights cutting through the dark like two thin swords. Around 1 a.m., the GPS glitched and rerouted. The voice said calmly, "In 1 mile, turn left." I shouldn't have listened. The turn led onto a narrow road between fields. The kind of place where you can't tell where the land ends and the fog begins. After a few minutes, I saw it. Ashbury Hollow, 3 miles. Something about that name stuck with me. I'd grown up nearby. I knew every small town in a 100-mile radius. But I'd never once heard of Ashbury Hollow. Curiosity won over common sense. I told myself it was just some forgotten farming community. Maybe I could find gas. Maybe a diner still open late. Anything to break the monotony of the empty highway. The road wound down into a shallow valley. The fog thickened, almost metallic in smell, like wet coins. And then I saw lights, dim and yellow, flickering in the mist. Street lamps, a town. Ashbury Hollow looked like a postcard from another decade. Old brick storefronts with boarded-up windows, a gas station with a rusted sign swinging in the wind, a diner called The Lantern with its neon buzzing faintly. I parked outside, engine idling, and for a second, everything looked frozen. No movement, no sound, not even the faint hum of insects. The clock on my dash read 1:44 a.m. Inside the diner, the lights were on. I pushed the door open. A bell jingled overhead. "Hello," I called out. No answer. Booths lined the wall, each one set with cups, silverware, half-finished plates of food gone gray with dust. Steam still curled from a coffee pot on the counter, though no one was there to pour it. My reflection in the glass door looked wrong. Stretched somehow, too tall. I told myself it was just fatigue. Then I heard something. A faint scraping sound, like a chair being pulled across the floor. It came from the back of the diner. "Hey," I said, voice cracking. I didn't mean to. The sound stopped. Then a whisper. "You're late." I froze. The voice wasn't angry. It was calm. Sad, almost. When I turned, I saw a man sitting in the far booth. He hadn't been there before. He was wearing a dark coat and had his hands folded on the table. His face was blurry in the dim light, like a smudge on glass. "You shouldn't have come down this road," he said quietly. I tried to speak, but my throat felt tight. He tilted his head, studying me. You followed the sign, didn't you? I nodded without meaning to. His expression didn't change. We all did. Behind him, through the diner's window, I noticed shapes. Silhouettes standing along the street, motionless. Men, women. Some looked like they'd been waiting there a long time. Their eyes caught the light, reflecting pale and hollow. I just need to get back to the main road, I said. If you could just... The man smiled faintly. There is no main road anymore. Not once you turn here. He slid something across the table. A folded map, yellow with age. On it was a single road leading in a loop. At the center, written in shaky pen, were the words, Ashbury Hollow. I backed away, heart pounding. The bell over the door jingled as I stumbled out. The fog outside had thickened into a wall. I couldn't see my car at first, just faint headlights glowing in the white haze. When I finally reached the driver's side, my hands were trembling so bad I dropped the keys. When I looked up, I froze. There was another car parked right beside mine. Same make, same model, same plate. And in the driver's seat of that other car, someone was staring back at me. Me. I don't remember getting in. I just remember driving, tires spinning on wet asphalt, fog tearing apart behind me. The GPS was dead. The radio played static. I kept the pedal down until the road curved up out of the valley, and the fog started to fade. When I finally saw a highway sign again, I almost cried. Route 18, east. I pulled over, shaking, trying to steady my breathing. The sun was just starting to rise. For a moment, I convinced myself I'd hallucinated the whole thing, that I'd just taken a wrong turn, that exhaustion had twisted my brain. Then I looked in the rearview mirror. Down in the valley, barely visible in the morning mist, I could still see it. The outline of the town. Street lamps glowing faintly. The diner sign flickering in the distance. And right at the entrance, the green sign swaying in the wind. But it didn't say Ashbury Hollow anymore. It said, "Welcome to Fairview." That's the name of my hometown. I turned the car around and drove until the fuel light came on. Too scared to stop, too afraid to look back. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm driving long stretches of empty road, my GPS reroutes for no reason. And just for a second, before it corrects itself, I see a gray line leading somewhere off the map. It's always labeled the same way. Alternate route, 3 miles.